My boyfriend humiliated and dumped me at the restaurant in front of everyone, said I should be grateful he ever dated me. Then walked out of the restaurant laughing while I sat there alone, face burning, heart in pieces, and holding a $287 check I couldn't afford. That night broke me. But what I found out afterward, that turned my heartbreak into rage. Because Jason hadn't just humiliated me, he'd lied about who he was from the very beginning. I still can't believe I'm actually writing this. I've started and deleted this so many times, because every version sounds insane. Like, how do you casually explain that your boyfriend of 2 years humiliated you so badly in public you had to leave the restaurant in tears, and then days later you find out his entire life is a lie? Let me start from the top. Jason and I had been dating for almost exactly 2 years. We weren't some whirlwind thing or toxic off-again, on-again couple. No. We were boring in a domestic way. Sunday brunches, his toothbrush next to mine, the kind of routine that makes you think, this could be it. We'd even talked about moving in together this summer. I'd gotten used to his little quirks, like leaving his socks absolutely everywhere, or being weirdly obsessed with his gym mirror selfies. He could be condescending sometimes, like suggesting I try a new hairstyle, or asking if a shirt made my arms look bigger, but I brushed it off as his version of being honest. Past me was a little too forgiving, apparently. Last Friday, Jason texted me about having dinner with some of his co-workers, Marcus and Eric, guys I'd never met. He said it'd be chill, just a vibe night, and asked if I wanted to come. This should have been a red flag. He never invited me to work stuff. I thought maybe he was finally letting me into that part of his life. I got excited. Went shopping for a new outfit even though I shouldn't have. Did the whole makeup tutorial deep dive. Put on the navy dress I loved but barely wore. The moment I stepped into the restaurant, something felt off. One of those fancy downtown places where you have to Google the menu before you go. Jason was already seated with the guys. Didn't even stand up to greet me, just gave a half glance and said, "You're late." I was 2 minutes late. Parking was a nightmare. I tried to shake it off and smile, but then he looked me up and down and muttered, "Oh, you wore that?" Not even quietly. Marcus and Eric gave each other that look. The kind that says, yikes. I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me. The next hour was pure torture. Jason talked over me every time I tried to join the conversation, acting like my retail job didn't qualify as real business experience. I was invisible until I wasn't, because when the bill came, and I thought maybe the nightmare was winding down, Jason looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You know what? I don't think this is working. I'm just not attracted to you anymore." Then with a laugh he added, "A girl like you should be grateful I even dated you this long." And just like that, he stood up, grabbed his jacket, walked out with his friends. I sat there frozen, humiliated, my hands shaking as I picked up the check for everyone's meals, including his expensive Wagyu steak and their 3 rounds of cocktails. $347. My credit card barely covered it. I walked to my car in a daze, called my best friend Claire, and sobbed so hard she thought I'd been in an accident. I wish I could say that was the worst part. But the next morning, she texted me something that made my stomach drop. She said, "Emily, I need to tell you something about Jason. Something big." The morning after the dinner disaster, I woke up with my mascara still smeared on my pillow and the worst emotional hangover of my life. My phone had blown up with messages, some from friends who'd already heard what happened. Thanks, Marcus's girlfriend. And 13 missed calls from Jason. Yes, 13. The man who dumped me like I was nothing was now suddenly desperate to talk. But I ignored every call. I wasn't ready. I wasn't even functioning yet. I was still in my stare at the ceiling and question everything phase. That's when Claire texted, "Emily, I need to tell you something about Jason. Something big." I barely had the energy to respond. Just sent back, "What? Now?" She called me immediately, and I could tell by her voice, this wasn't just bestie gossip. It was that shaky, adrenaline-laced tone people use when they've been sitting on something huge and they know it's going to hurt you. She said, "I didn't want to say anything before because I figured it wasn't my place, but after what he did last night, you deserve to know." And then she dropped the bomb. Jason wasn't who he said he was, at all. Claire had met Jason through her job at the same company. That's how we met in the first place, through her. He always told me he was in marketing, that he was leading a team, constantly bragged about presentations, client meetings, and how close he was to getting a promotion. But according to Claire and now, a growing list of coworkers she'd quietly asked, Jason wasn't some marketing genius. He was an assistant. Literally, his job was ordering coffee, managing calendars, and booking conference rooms. That big project he said he was running? He was just the guy building the slide deck for someone else's pitch. Every single business trip he bragged about? Fake. Every late night at the office? Either him killing time at the gym or out drinking with the guys. My stomach twisted, remembering the times I'd made him a midnight snack thinking he was working hard to impress his boss. All those late nights weren't work. They were just lies. Oh, Claire added, almost like an afterthought. And that gym selfie he posted last week, you know, the one captioned, "Level up. Know your worth?" Yeah. He posted that the morning after he dumped me. I swear I saw red. I hung up with Claire and went into full detective mode. Opened up our old texts, reread them with a fresh lens. Scrolled through photos, receipts, memories. Suddenly, everything had cracks in it. The times he claimed he was stuck in meetings but posted a story at the bar. The expensive colognes he said were gifts from his boss that I now realize I probably bought. And the way he always pushed me to foot the bill the last few months, blaming it on delays in payroll. Oh, and remember how he dumped me in front of his friends? Yeah, Marcus DM'd me, said he thought Jason was being harsh and that he was surprised Jason went through with it. Went through with it? Apparently, Jason had planned to break up with me that night. He thought doing it in public would keep it less emotional. I was still reeling from that when my phone buzzed with a new message. Unknown number. Hey, it's Josh. I work with Jason. Claire gave me your number. There's some stuff you should know. I called Josh without even thinking. I was still in my pajamas, sitting cross-legged on my couch with a half-melted pint of cookie dough ice cream in my lap. I didn't even say hello, just, "What do I need to know?" There was a long pause on his end. Then he said quietly, "I didn't want to get involved, but Jason's been telling people at work some really messed up stuff about you. And it's not fair." Apparently, Jason's version of the story was that I had been clingy, too obsessed with marriage, and that he had to cut things off before it got worse. Which is funny, because he was the one who made a Pinterest board called Future Home Vibes and talked about babies every time we walked past a Pottery Barn Kids. But it got worse. Josh said Jason had built this image of himself at work as this self-made, fast-tracked marketing star who was dating a high-maintenance influencer type. His words, not mine. Someone who was always spending his money, always posting about him, always pushing him to propose. None of that was true. I was the one paying for most of our dates by the end. I never pressured him for anything serious, we were just existing. And if anything, I was the low-maintenance one, choosing ramen nights and watching true crime documentaries in our sweats, instead of pushing for fancy date nights. Then Josh said something that chilled me. You know those business trips he said he was on last year? Yeah. Jason had told me he flew out to Atlanta and San Diego for work conferences. He even posted hotel lobby photos and tagged them with airport locations. Turns out, those were all from stock image sites or downloaded from his company's internal website. Josh had receipts. Literally, every single trip was a lie. He was never on a plane. He was never in those hotels. And when I asked where he went during those weekends, Josh just said, "I think you should ask Claire about that." And that's when I started to spiral. I hung up and texted Claire in all caps. Where did he go during those fake trips? She didn't answer right away. Probably working. But 5 minutes later, she sent a voice note. Her tone was tense. Okay, don't freak out. But I just found out from Josh that during one of those so-called trips, Jason was seen out at a bar with a woman. Blonde. Definitely not a coworker. The nausea hit me like a wave. He cheated. He had to have cheated. And he used those fake work trips as cover. I felt like my whole body was pulsing with rage. Not just because of the lie, or the cheating, or the humiliation, but because I defended this man. Over and over. When my friends raised red flags, when his comments about my body got sharper, when he dismissed my career like it was a cute hobby, I stood by him. And now, I didn't even know who I'd been standing by. Then came the final straw. Margaret, his mom, sweet, well-meaning Margaret, who always sent me Christmas cards and asked how my job was going. She called me that night. I almost didn't answer, but when I picked up, her voice was trembling. "Emily, honey, I need to ask, are you and Jason still together?" I said, "Not anymore." And she whispered, "Then why did he tell us you're coming to his birthday dinner this Saturday? He said you two have big news to share, y'all." I almost dropped the phone. Big news. What big news? Whatever Jason was planning, it wasn't just illusional. It was calculated. And in that moment, I decided, I'm going to that birthday dinner. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the words "big news" echoing in my head like a siren. He told his family we were not only still together, but that we had some grand announcement planned for his birthday dinner. My skin crawled just thinking about it. Was he trying to save face? Pretend he hadn't been publicly dumped after humiliating me? Or was this about something darker, some narrative he was trying to spin to control the story? Either way, I knew what I had to do. I was going. Not to play along, to blow it up. The next morning I called Claire. She answered on the first ring, already knowing. "You're going to the dinner, aren't you?" I'm not going to cause a scene, I said, but I'm not going to let him rewrite the ending of our story either. Claire, bless her, was already 5 steps ahead. We need a plan. And an outfit. We spent the rest of Friday night combing through our text histories, pulling screenshots of Jason's lies. Messages where he claimed to be working late, tagged in a different part of town. His Pinterest boards. Photos he posted that Josh confirmed were lifted from Google. Everything. And then we got to the fun part, what I was going to wear. There was a part of me, the petty, deeply wounded part, that wanted to show up looking like revenge. Like you lost the best thing that ever happened to you embodied in one woman. But in the end, we decided subtle was better. Classic. Confident. The opposite of the girl he described to his friends. We settled on a black dress I used to wear when I worked retail one. Jason once said made me look average. It fits like a glove. And the compliments I used to get in it? Never from him. Only from everyone else. Saturday came faster than I expected. I spent the whole day alternating between shaking and rage cleaning my apartment. Around 5:30 p.m., Claire picked me up. We drove in silence at first, both of us tense. Then she said, "You don't owe him anything. Not grace. Not closure. But if you're gonna face him for you." I nodded, gripping the envelope in my purse, the one filled with printouts of everything we'd gathered. Proof of his lies, his fake job, his cheating, his manipulation. We pulled up to his parents' house at 6:03 p.m. I stepped out of the car like I was walking onto a stage. My legs felt like jello, but my heart? Steel. Margaret opened the door with a big smile. "Emily, we weren't sure you'd make it. Jason's been well. He'll be so happy." I hugged her. Because she was kind. Because none of this was her fault. And because I knew this might be the last time I'd ever see her. Inside, the dining table was set. Balloons. A happy birthday banner. Everyone looked up when I entered Jason's sister, her husband, a couple cousins, his uncle who always forgot my name. And then, Jason. He walked in from the kitchen carrying a tray of wine glasses and froze when he saw me. His face was pure shock. Then, panic. Then, the fakest smile I've ever seen. "Babe," he said, trying to sound casual. "You made it." I smiled back. Just as fake. Of course I did. Wouldn't miss the big news, right? He blinked. Everyone turned to look at us. Jason was sweating. Yeah, about that." And that's when the doorbell rang. Jason opened it, and standing there was Josh, with a very important envelope in hand. Josh standing at the door was not part of Jason's plan. That much was clear. The second he saw him, Jason stiffened like his skeleton forgot how to function. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Meanwhile, Margaret looked over curiously and said, "Oh, are you one of Jason's friends from work?" Josh gave a polite smile. "Not exactly. Sorry for the interruption, ma'am. I was just dropping this off." He held up the envelope, the same one I'd prepped the night before. Jason tried to intercept him. "This isn't the time." But Josh, bless his messy, neutral energy, turned to me and said, "Emily, you left this with me last night. Wanted to make sure it got to you before you left." Everyone was staring now. A cousin paused mid-bite of birthday cake. I took the envelope, held it in both hands, and said, "Thanks, Josh. Really appreciate it." Josh gave a tiny nod, turned, and left. Total chaos agent. Absolute icon. I looked up at the table. Jason's family was still frozen. Margaret's eyes darting between me and Jason. I took a deep breath, then said calmly, "Before dinner gets cold, I just want to take a second to address the big news Jason mentioned." His face turned gray. "The big news is, Jason and I are no longer together." I paused. Let that land. Gasps. A fork clattered onto a plate. Someone actually said, "What?" Margaret looked heartbroken. "Jason? What is she talking about?" Jason tried to recover. This isn't the place, Emily. We can talk about this later." But I wasn't done. I held up the envelope. Inside this are emails, text, screenshots, even LinkedIn lies that prove Jason hasn't just been dishonest with me, but with everyone. I pulled out the first page, his LinkedIn profile printed next to a company roster, showing his actual title. Jason says he's the marketing team lead. He's actually an administrative assistant. Another gasp. His sister blinked, clearly connecting dots. I held up the next page, screenshots from his so-called business trips, next to Josh's confirmation that those events never happened. And these trips, he was never in Atlanta or San Diego. He faked hotel photos, lied about entire weekends. Then came the cheating evidence. A blurry photo Claire had found on someone's tagged Insta story Jason at a bar, arm around a girl I'd never seen before. The timestamp? One of his work trips. Jason finally snapped. "Emily, stop. This is my birthday dinner." What are you trying to do, ruin my life? I tilted my head. You already did. I'm just giving your family the courtesy you never gave me the truth. Silence. Margaret looked like she was about to cry. I tucked everything back into the envelope and stood up. Thank you for having me, Margaret. You've always been so kind. I'm sorry it had to go this way. And then I walked out. I didn't look back. Not when Jason called my name. Not when his uncle said, "Wait, what just happened?" Not even when Margaret softly said, "Oh my God." Claire was parked at the end of the street with the windows down and Kill Bill playing quietly. When I got in, she didn't say a word, just handed me a cupcake and smiled. Jason had tried to humiliate me. Instead, he ended up exposed in front of his entire family. But this story? Oh, it wasn't over yet. Monday morning, I woke up feeling not amazing exactly, but lighter, like I'd taken a full breath for the first time in weeks. Then my phone buzzed. It was a DM on Instagram from a name I didn't recognize. But the profile picture caught my attention. Blonde, sharp cheekbones, familiar somehow. And the message? Hey, I know this is random, but I used to date Jason. I saw what happened at his birthday dinner. Can we talk? Her name was Olivia. I clicked her profile. Private. Bio said something about design school and iced coffee. I hesitated for half a second, because opening that door meant opening everything back up again, but curiosity won. I replied, "Sure, go ahead." She didn't waste time. I was with Jason about 3 years ago, only for a few months. He love-bombed me hard dates, compliments, talked about our future like it was already happening. Then, one weekend, he ghosted me completely. Gone. Blocked me on everything. I didn't hear from him again until 6 months later, when he showed up at the same party with a new girlfriend. I blinked at the screen. That timeline, 6 months after Olivia got ghosted, that was right when Jason and I met. Was the girlfriend me? I asked. Olivia confirmed. Yep, I was the new girl he'd paraded around, like she never existed. But that wasn't the part that wrecked me. She said, I wasn't even going to say anything. But when I heard how he treated you, I felt sick. And then a friend told me he'd pulled the same thing before me too. It's a pattern. He builds women up, then tears them down. And he lies about everything. Even his last name sometimes. Excuse me. What? She sent me a screenshot, an old text thread between them. In it, Jason claimed his last name was Blake, that he came from old money, had stocks in a tech startup, and had done a semester at NYU, which, side note, he once told me he turned down because college is a scam. I felt physically ill. He was a walking, talking identity crisis. Olivia ended with this. I don't want anything from you. I just want you to know it wasn't your fault. He does this, and you're not the first, but I hope you're the last. I stared at that message for a long time. Then, on impulse, I posted a story. Black screen, white text. Turns out, the guy who dumped me at a restaurant after calling me ugly in front of his friends wasn't just rude. He was a con artist in a hoodie. Shout out to all the women who came forward. I see you, I believe you. And I'm done being quiet. I didn't tag him. I didn't need to. Within 20 minutes, I had 5 DMs from mutual friends saying, Sue, we need to talk about Jason. Because apparently, he'd told different versions of his life to literally everyone he knew. One said he was moving to LA for a job at Spotify. One thought he was saving for a ring. One had loaned him money. And suddenly, I had a new mission. Not revenge, not exactly, but reclamation. I wasn't going to just survive this. I was going to rebuild louder. Something shifted after I posted that story. For the first time since that awful night at the restaurant, I felt powerful again. Not petty, not vengeful, just clear. People started reaching out. Women I'd only met once at office happy hours. Old high school friends who had mutuals with Jason. Even a girl who said she matched with him once on Hinge but ghosted him after he claimed he was too important to take her to Olive Garden. The consensus was unanimous. Jason had spent years constructing a fake version of himself, one ego-boosting lie at a time. And now, his house of cards was collapsing. I didn't even have to push it over. All I had to do was stop protecting him. That week, I cleaned out everything that reminded me of him. His hoodie that smelled like his cologne? Gone. That dumb Lego set he never finished building on my bookshelf? In the trash. Even the his and hers mugs we bought at that fall craft fair? Smashed one accidentally. Kept the other as a toothbrush holder. For me. Claire came over with a bottle of wine and helped me put together what we jokingly called the Jason Lie Binder. It wasn't literal, but it was a Google Drive folder. Screenshots of texts, his fake job listings, a list of everything he'd said he'd do and never did, names of people he borrowed money from and ghosted. And yes, the final total of the bill he made me pay that night, $347.65. I sent the folder to myself with the subject line, "For the memoir." But here's the wild part. Even after everything, Jason still wouldn't stop reaching out. He started small. A simple, "Hey, can we talk?" I ignored it. Then he got more dramatic. "I miss you. I messed up. I know that now." Still ignored it. Then came the guilt trip voicemails. "I was drunk. I didn't mean any of it. I didn't know how to handle the pressure. You're the only real thing I've ever had." I didn't respond to a single one, but I saved them. Because I was done giving second chances to people who humiliate me just because it makes them feel bigger. By Friday, the DM slowed, but then I got one more, from someone I never expected. Jason's boss. Apparently, news of his behavior, specifically the dinner disaster and the fake job title, had gotten around. People at work were talking, and not in a good way. The message said, "I don't want to get in the middle of personal drama, but I do want to say, I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that. And if you ever want to talk about what happened, I'm here." I sat there, stunned. I hadn't gone after his job. I hadn't even posted about the company. But the truth found its way to the surface anyway. The next morning, Jason finally stopped texting. Instead, he posted a 4-minute video on Instagram. It was titled, "Owning My Mistakes." And y'all, what I saw made my jaw drop. I wasn't following him anymore, obviously, but people sent me the video within minutes of it going up. The caption read, "Sometimes it takes losing everything to realize who you really are." Already off to a cringe start. It was 4 minutes and 27 seconds long. Just Jason, sitting in his car, parked somewhere that looked like a Walgreens lot, staring into the camera with glassy eyes, and what I assume was a carefully curated hoodie, just slouched enough look. He started slow. His voice was soft, like he was auditioning for some redemption arc in a Netflix docuseries. "Hey guys, I know there's been a lot said about me this week, and I just want to say I take full accountability. Do you, Jason? Do you really?" He went on, "I said things I shouldn't have. I treated someone who cared about me with total disrespect. I let my ego get in the way, and I lied. About more than just my feelings. I lied about my job, my intentions, who I was. I was trying to impress people and ended up hurting the only person who really believed in me." Cue dramatic sniff. Then this gem. "To Emily, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. Truly. You were too good for me, and I knew it. I guess part of me wanted to sabotage it before you figured that out." The comment section was a war zone. Some people were eating it up. "This takes guts. Proud of you for owning it, King. Growth starts here." But others? My people? They were not having it. Funny how the apology only comes when he gets exposed. This isn't accountability, this is PR cleanup. You humiliate her publicly, and now you apologize publicly to make yourself feel better? Barf. My DMs lit up with supportive messages from women I hadn't spoken to in years. People were enraged on my behalf, empowered. Some even shared their own stories of being publicly embarrassed, gaslit, or dumped like trash by someone they trusted. And suddenly, this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every woman who's ever sat in a restaurant, staring at a half-eaten plate of pasta, wondering how she missed the red flags. So I did something bold, something I never imagined I'd have the nerve to do. I recorded a video of my own. Nothing fancy, just me, on my couch, hoodie on, hair in a bun, zero makeup, raw, real. I said, "Hi, I'm the girl Jason called ugly at dinner and dumped in front of his friends. I paid for everyone's meal." I sat in my car afterward shaking, wondering if 2 years of my life meant nothing. Then I found out he lied about everything, his job, his character, and worst of all, me. But here's what I want you to know. I'm not broken. I'm just done. Done shrinking to make insecure men feel big. Done calling red flags stress or just how guys are. Done waiting for apologies that only come when they lose control of the narrative. I ended with, "To anyone watching this who's ever been made to feel small, just know, you're not alone. And you're not crazy. You're just finally seeing the truth." I hit post. And then I turned my phone off. For a full day. When I turned it back on 24 hours later, I had 87 new DMs. One was from a podcast host asking if I'd come on to talk about reclaiming your power after public betrayal. And one was from someone who used to work with Jason. And what she had to say changed everything I thought I knew about him again. The message came from a woman named Rachel. Her profile picture was a group photo, but I immediately recognized the setting. The rooftop bar Jason once bragged about taking his team to for a work celebration. I'd seen that exact photo before in his texts. He'd told me it was a leadership retreat he organized. Plot twist. Rachel was the one who organized it. Her DM started simply, "Hey, I hope it's okay that I'm reaching out. I saw your video, and I used to work with Jason. There's something I think you should know. I messaged back, go ahead, I'm listening. And then she told me everything. Rachel had been at the company for nearly 4 years, long enough to see multiple waves of turnover, and more than a few scandals. Jason joined their department 2 years ago. According to her, he started charming people from day one, not by being helpful or skilled, but by being loud. He was the guy who always had something to prove, she said, always bragging, always stretching the truth. And for a while, people bought it. Even I did. Then came the part that made my stomach drop. He tried to hook up with me once, she said. We were both at an after-work event. I'd just gotten promoted. He cornered me and said, you deserve someone who actually gets you, not those suits upstairs. When she shut him down, he ghosted her at work, started undermining her in meetings, made passive-aggressive comments about her emotional leadership style. Rachel filed an informal complaint, but nothing ever stuck because Jason was smart about it. Just like he was with me, charming in public, venomous in private. And guess what? He told her about me. He said you were too dependent, that he stayed with you, out of guilt, that he was planning to end things soon. I felt a weird mix of devastation and relief, because on one hand, I wanted to scream. But on the other, it wasn't just me. He'd done this before, probably multiple times, built fake narratives to suit whatever role he needed to play. I thanked her, genuinely, and she ended with, I'm sorry you went through it, but I'm so glad you're speaking up. It's what most of us never got to do. That line stuck with me, that most of us stay quiet, that most of us just carry the humiliation and confusion and let them walk away untarnished. Not this time, not me. That week, I started journaling everything, not for Instagram, not for revenge, for me. Every manipulation, every micro-comment, every moment I brushed off because he's just being honest. I wrote it all down. And somewhere in those pages, I found something I hadn't felt in weeks, clarity. I could see myself again, not as the girl Jason dumped at a restaurant, but as the woman who finally walked away. But of course, just as I started healing, Jason had to remind me he still didn't know how to respect boundaries. Because on Sunday, he showed up at my apartment with flowers and a ring box. I opened the door expecting a package. What I got was Jason, standing there with a bouquet of gas station flowers and a ring box that looked like it had been sitting in his glove compartment for a week. He looked awful and shaven, circles under his eyes, like someone who hadn't slept in days. I didn't say anything. I just leaned on the door frame, arms crossed, waiting. Emily, he said, voice cracking, please, just hear me out. I didn't move. He held up the box. This was supposed to be your ring. I bought it months ago. I was going to propose for real. Not some stupid dinner. Not like that. I panicked. I messed everything up. But I love you. I still love you. Please, just give me another chance. I let the silence stretch out. Then I said quietly, you humiliated me in front of your friends, lied about who you were for 2 years, and now you think a ring fixes that? He blinked. I was scared. No, you were selfish, I said. You didn't love me. You loved how I made you feel about yourself. But the second that version of me stopped serving your ego, you tried to tear me down. He opened his mouth to argue, but I didn't give him the chance. You didn't respect me. You didn't protect me. You exploited me. And now you're here not because you're sorry, but because you lost control of the story. That hit. I saw it in his face. I took a deep breath, the calmest I'd felt in weeks. I don't need the flowers. I don't want the ring. And I definitely don't want the man who thought I should be grateful just to be in his presence. And with that, I closed the door. I didn't slam it, just closed it, softly, like shutting a chapter. Then I walked to my kitchen, made coffee, and put on a playlist that didn't make me cry anymore. Later that week, I started a blog, just a little corner of the internet to share my story and others like it. I called it The Last Time He Lied. Within a month, it had thousands of followers. Turns out there's a whole army of women out there who needed to hear what I finally had the courage to say. You're not too much. You're not too sensitive. You're not hard to love. You were just with someone who mistook your softness for weakness. And when I looked in the mirror that night, after it all, after the heartbreak, after the humiliation, after the fake apologies and ring and gas station flowers, I didn't see the girl who got dumped in a restaurant.